Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and I am so excited to introduce ILNP's new jelly formula with their watercolor collection. I feel like I've been waiting for ILNP to release jelly polishes for the longest time. If you don't know, ILNP already has a lot of jelly-based polishes. They're usually either filled with micro silver holographic flakes or iridescent flakes, and those are some of my favorite polishes from them, but I have been wanting just plain jellies for the longest time, and they finally gave them to us. So I will save more of my thoughts at the end. For now, let's just get into the swatches. The first polish we have is Malibu, and this one is described as a raspberry colored jelly. So I don't want to say that I struggled with the formula, maybe I just didn't have enough polish on the brush because as you can see, it kind of started to thin out, especially on the left side of my nail, but I didn't really want to dip back in out of fear of just flooding my cuticle area. So I just tried to go over it, and even though it looked a little streaky at first, it did end up self-leveling pretty well. Maybe not the most even coverage on one coat, but it is very highly pigmented, so it does provide a really great base. And once you do the second coat, it definitely evens out in the coverage and looks a lot more wearable this way. This one is definitely a true translucent kind of jelly where no matter how many coats you're gonna do, you are still gonna see your nail line. It's not gonna provide any kind of cloudy coverage like some other jellies, but the color does deepen up a little bit more on the third coat. I feel like this is where you see more of that reddish undertone that really makes it that raspberry color. But it's not red by any means, it really is just like a deeper hot pink. Up next we have Tango, and this one is described as a juicy orange jelly. So I did try to grab a little bit more polish on the brush, and I definitely found the application was a lot easier. I didn't have any issues with it being streaky. As you can see on the first coat, it has really nice even coverage. It just might not be the most flattering, I think, but just like the last shade, this one does build up really beautifully on two coats. You just get so much of that color. I feel like these are so pigmented, but obviously still very juicy. I definitely think this one is very passable and wearable on just two coats alone. You obviously are still gonna see your nail line because that's just the nature of jellies, but I did want to show this one built up in a third coat just to show you how this looks. I feel like it does intensify the color a little bit more, and honestly I didn't love it on three coats just because I feel like it made it a little too dark for me. Up next we have Turquoise Water, and this one is described as a turquoise blue jelly, and I need to apologize from the start because this one is not picking up color accurate at all. I feel like it just looks like a medium toned sky blue, but it really is turquoise, so just imagine this with a little bit more green, but not too much green that it ends up turning teal. So apologies for that, but just trust me, it is a beautiful shade of blue. The formula on this one was really nice, but I didn't find it was as even coverage as the last shade, which again could be my application, like maybe I just didn't grab enough polish on the brush, similar to what happened with Malibu. But either way, it did build up very nicely on two coats. You start to see more of that juicy color, and I don't know if I just happened to do a thinner second and third coat, but I feel like this one was just a little bit more sheer than the other two. Like they're all very much on the translucent jelly kind of formula side, but I feel like this one just looked extra glassy, almost like you see a little more nail line than you did with the other shades, but maybe that's just me. Either way, gorgeous color. And rounding out the collection, we have Pink Slush, and this is a soft pink jelly. I'm sure you can tell by my voice, I have the biggest smile on my face because this is easily my favorite from the collection. I have just been waiting for a warmer, mid-toned pink jelly for the longest time, and I'm so happy that ILNP released this one. It is just so beautiful. Maybe not super impressive on one coat alone, kind of like the other shades. I think it definitely starts to shine when you build it up in at least two coats, but my preference for the shade is building it up in a third just to really intensify the color, and I think it looks so good. I feel like this is the perfect color for that lip gloss nail kind of trend too. It is just so flattering, so pretty. And here is a Skittle of the Watercolor collection. I'm wearing 2 coats of each in the sun and the shade, so you can get an idea of how much visible nail line you're gonna get, and they look really good, really highly pigmented and very even coverage. And on 3 coats, it starts to build up a little bit more. I think you get the most visible nail line with Turquoise Water and then with Tango, but then you don't get as much with the pinks, but it could just be that my nails are shorter. So I also wanted to show a couple of different nail art looks that you can do with these jellies, starting with a classic jelly sandwich. I think they're super fun with a chunky glitter topper, so I'm going to be using this old one that I have from Noodles Nail Polish called Summer Days. And I'm doing 1 coat of that over 1 coat of Malibu, and then once that's dry, I go in with another coat of Malibu on top of that to sort of encapsulate the glitters and just make them look like they're floating within the jelly. I think this is such a cute look. I love jelly sandwiches, especially in the summertime. Here's another combination with Pink Slush and Cirque Colors XX, which is a metallic holographic glitter topper, but I think Pink Slush made it look a little more pastel, which is so fun. You can also use some flakies. Here I did 2 coats of Mooncat's Foxfire, which is an iridescent flaky mix in between Turquoise Water, and it's so magical. And you can even create your own jelly magnetic polishes if you do have a magnetic kind of topper like Cirque Colors Chemistry. Here I made a velvet version of Tango. I thought Malibu, Pink Slush, and Tango would create the perfect sunset gradient, so I'm starting with Tango and going in the lower corner of my nail. For whatever reason, I thought doing a little diagonal gradient would be exciting, and you just want to put a little blob of color and start kind of blending it out, and then immediately going in with the next shade to sort of blend the colors together. You definitely want to do at least 2 coats of this just to intensify those colors, and I think this is so beautiful. It might not be as smooth as a classic sponged on gradient with creams, but I kind of like the nebulous look. If that technique is a little too tricky, you can also just do a classic vertical gradient with these jellies. You just go in 1 color, paint in half of your nail, and then immediately with the second color, paint the other half slightly overlapping, and it creates the most flawless kind of blend. It is just so beautiful. I especially love this with Malibu and Tango. I think hot pink and orange are just such an iconic duo for summer. Like, you still get all these summer sunset vibes. And my favorite, of course, is doing a watercolor blend, which is a must with the watercolor collection. I'm using all 4 polishes here, and my best tip is to keep them all open and right next to each other so you can immediately go from one polish to the next. This clip is actually in real time, so you can get an idea of how fast I'm working here, because you do want to be able to blend in the colors along the edges. You'll see in a minute once I get to the blue shade that the hot pink has already kind of dried down, so I wasn't really able to blend those in, and it's just the blue layered on top of the hot pink. But because I'm doing a second coat, I'm sort of going backwards with that shade and blending the hot pink with the blue, and then going back again with the orange and the light pink, and then back to the blue. I know it might seem kind of chaotic with how fast you have to work here, but I promise it is just such a fun look. It is so beautiful in the end. You don't have to worry about it being perfect because it just leans into that abstract watercolor look. And lastly, I'm going to be doing a little pond design using Turquoise Water, and then this bright lime green from Color Department called Kiwi Juice, and then a darker green later because I'm going to be painting little sea turtles. I initially was going to do a little cloud pond mani, but I feel like that's just been done before, and I thought doing little sea turtles for this shade would be so perfect. So as you saw, I started by painting the little turtle body over 1 coat of Turquoise Water once that was dried, and then I added the turtle shell, and then once that's dry, I go in with another layer of Turquoise Water. So it makes it look like he's swimming under there, just so cute. Basically, a pond design is when you do some nail art in between the layers of your jelly polish. So I added a little friend here, and you could leave him as is. You don't have to do another layer of your jelly if you want like more contrast. I feel like because I only have 2 turtles here, there isn't a lot of contrast or depth, but I still love how this looks in the end. Now, getting into comparisons, I did want to start by showing the watercolor collection on top next to the creams from the arcade collection on the bottom, because when I first saw the colors, I was like, wait, these are so familiar. But obviously they are not dupes by any means. But I did want to point out with the blues here that Turquoise Water actually looks a little bit more like Retro Teal, and then Retro Teal is just a little bit darker. And now for the moment you've been waiting for, how do these ILNP jellies compare to Cirque's jellies? We're starting with Malibu and looking at it next to XOXO Jelly, and while both of these are darker hot pink jelly polishes, they are not exact dupes. They do look the most similar on one coat, but once you start to build them up, you can start to see the difference a little bit more. I would say that XOXO is more of a true hot pink, whereas Malibu has more of that red undertone, which gives it that raspberry color that they use to describe it. But they are definitely extremely similar, where you likely will not be able to tell the difference if you're wearing both of them as a Skittle. Here's Tango next to Saffron Jelly, which is Cirque's like true orange colored jelly. As you can see though, that one is a little bit lighter and maybe a little bit yellow leaning. And while this one isn't around anymore, I did also want to show it next to Fuyū Jelly from the MXM Tune collection. It might look pretty similar to it here in this clip, but it's actually a bit warmer, almost like a coral or maybe papaya kind of color. So I was gonna say that Tango is kind of like an in-between of Fuyū and Saffron, maybe closer to Saffron because that's just more of a true orange. But like I mentioned before, Tango is definitely on the medium to deeper kind of color where it's just so much more pigmented. You can see already on the first coat alone how much darker it is than Saffron, which has a lot of that yellow leaning color coming through, but then it does build up to be a little bit more of that juicy orange tangerine kind of color on 3 coats, but it's still not going to be nearly as dark as Tango. So I thought I could try to recreate Tango by using 1 coat of Lucky Jelly over Saffron Jelly because it has a little bit more of that red color, but Lucky just looked a little too dark and almost muddy. So instead I thought to use Poppy Jelly, which is a little bit of a brighter kind of red orange, but I used that as my base and then did 2 coats of Saffron Jelly on top of that, and I feel like this was really close. Then for Turquoise Water, the closest blue that I had was Cirque's Aqua Jelly, which as you can see is not comparable. Aqua Jelly is surprisingly color accurate here, where it's very much like a sky blue kind of shade. And here it is next to Cirque's Lagoon Jelly from their most recent glaze collection this year. I thought it would be a little bit closer to Turquoise Water because Lagoon Jelly is kind of like a blue-green sort of shade, almost like a minty or pastel turquoise color, but it's not anywhere near the turquoise that Turquoise Water is. Again, that one is just not picking up color accurate at all. I would say it is closer to Aqua Jelly, but it's still just too dark and a different shade of blue entirely. I think Turquoise Water looks a little bit more color accurate in this clip, like you can see more of that greenish sort of undertone, but it's not as white based as Aqua Jelly. And lastly for Pink Slush, here it is next to Pink Lady Jelly, which was from the most recent glaze collection. This one is obviously much more cool toned, so it is not comparable. Maybe the closest would be Peach Jelly from the glaze collection a couple of years ago. It's the only other warm, somewhat pink colored jelly that Cirque has, but obviously that one is a lot lighter and just more of a true peach color as opposed to a proper pink. So they're not dupes by any means, but I did want to try to recreate Pink Slush by using 1 coat of Peach Jelly over 1 coat of XOXO Jelly, and I would say it's kind of close, but not quite there. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for ILNP's watercolor collection. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of this release and ILNP's first jelly formula. Are you just as excited over them as I am? Because obviously I am a huge fan. Overall, I think they did a really great job with the formulation, even though I kind of did struggle with the very first swatch that I did. It was kind of similar to the experience that I had with their creams last year with the Arcade collection specifically, where it almost feels like I was wiping too much polish off of the brush, which is weird considering I normally am pretty heavy-handed. Like I don't do thinner coats, so I think if you do thinner coats, you might experience these drying like a little too fast, but I still don't think they're really finicky to work with at all. And again, they self-level really beautifully and are very highly pigmented, so they build up really nicely. I think this color palette is so yummy, especially for summertime. Like it really gives you those melted popsicle vibes. Let me know how you feel about them putting out 2 pinks in this collection, because I feel like not everybody's gonna love that. Obviously I do because I am a certified pink lover, and I especially love hot pink jelly nails for the summertime, but I am most excited over Pink Slush. That is like the shade of pink that I was waiting for in a jelly formula, but they're all just so cute. Like I can't choose between the pinks, so I'm not going to, but I definitely can't wait to see any other jellies that they give us. I'm hoping we'll get some more bright and colorful ones this summer, and I'm especially hoping for darker ones in the fall. But a small gripe that I do have with these actually has to do with their packaging. If you don't know, ILNP mainly comes in black boxes that have boutique effect on the front, because that means that they are specialty finishes where they're hollow or shimmers or flakies or whatever. And then only last year they introduced their new studio color line with their cream polishes, which all come in white boxes that obviously say studio color on the front. And these came in those white boxes, and I just think that might be confusing to people. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like I've been led to believe that the studio color line is just for creams. Like if you were to go to their website expecting to look for their creams, you know to go to their studio color category, but then you're gonna see these 4 polishes intermixed with the others. And I know ILNP will have jellies like in the description box, but you know, sometimes people just don't read that. So I feel like it just would make more sense and be less confusing, especially on like the website categorizing, to keep these with the specialty finishes. But I don't know, that's just me. Those are my thoughts on it. As a reminder, these are going to be available for pre-order starting on Friday. So as usual, I will have ILNP's website linked down below. If you're going to be interested in shopping them, definitely let me know if you're going to be picking up this little collection or just 1 or 2 of them, or let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!